everyone, and welcome to Think Future. My name's Chris Kalaboukis, and once again we're coming at you live from deep in the heart of Silicon Valley, California. We're talking innovation, startups, the future, not necessarily those, and not necessarily in that order. If you watch on YouTube, smack that subscribe button and hit that bell so you can be notified when a new show comes online. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast service, please subscribe and please drop a note on Apple Podcasts. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And I wanted to say again, my book, 9 Rules for the Future, that I wrote with ChatGPT, is now on sale on Amazon, and the link is in the show notes below. If you listen to yesterday's show, you'll probably hear all about the complaints I got about me writing a book with ChatGPT. Oh my God, everybody was up in arms. Up in arms. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about this great image I came across. And I forget the name of the artist who put this image together. But basically what he did is he took a side view of each and every SUV from each and every manufacturer. And he took a white version of the SUV and he put it on one graphic. And I don't know if you've seen this graphic around. If I find it, if I can get permission from the author, I'll put it up. The graphic showed that each and every SUV almost looks exactly alike. And apparently somebody borrowed that image from him and said, look, design is dead. Design is dead because every SUV looks exactly the same as every other SUV. And I thought to myself, no, that doesn't mean that design is dead. That means many, many other things, but it doesn't mean that design is dead. It means that design is restricted. Design is restricted. We can create crazy new automobile designs. We can create crazy new SUV designs. But the problem is that there's too many barriers to creating crazy new SUV designs, which cannot be overcome right now. And it can't be overcome right now due to a number of different factors. Let's talk about the first one, regulation, right? There's certain regulations, depending on the countries you're with, which say that automobiles have to have certain kinds of safety measures. It's got to be this, it's got to be that. So there's a certain set of regulations that fall into what needs to be done in an automobile to make it safe. Now, the thing is that the reason I mention that is not because it's the most important, but it's actually the least important. It's the least important because if you think about safety, there are a multitude of ways to build a safe vehicle. And this multitude of ways with safe vehicles doesn't necessarily need to be on 4 wheels, doesn't necessarily need to be a box, doesn't need to be necessarily be shaped the way it is. There is no reason. In fact, haven't you seen that there's a new truck has come out which pushes the cab forward in some way, so it actually makes the back of the pickup really huge, and it eliminates the whole front end, and it pushes the cab right to the front, just like these little trucks do. So there are a lot of different ways in which automobiles can be designed to look different. So SUVs can be designed to look different. Cars can be designed to look different. And it's not the technology. The technology is not the issue at all. So I want to start with that, is that we now have the ability and the technology to build a car or an SUV or anything in any shape or form. And not only that, that shape or form can completely look different from every other shape and form that's out there instead of it looking the same, even mapping to the regulatory environment that's out there. So we can, if we wanted to, have a designer design an automobile which looks nothing like those SUVs. Nothing like them. But you know what? Absolutely nobody would buy one. And I'll tell you why no one will buy one. Because of Memetic Theory. And I've talked about this before. René Girard's Memetic Theory. We all want what everyone else has. We learn by looking at everyone else, by seeing what everybody else does, and we do whatever everybody else does. So when we go out to buy an SUV, we can complain that all of these SUVs look alike. But the reality is that people want, or most people want, or the people who don't have that design ethos in their heads want something that looks distinctive, but not that distinctive. They don't want to stick out too far. They want to stick out, but they don't want to stick out too far. They just want something that's on the edge of being different. Slightly different. Not too different, not slightly different. So my idea of a modular automobile, where if you think about it, a modular automobile is a good idea, right? Because a lot of times you're sitting in your car on your own. Why do you need a 2-ton SUV if you're in your car on your own? Maybe you need a modular automobile that can sit 1, sit 2, sit 4, depending on your requirements. And it can bolt itself back together. Maybe some way of figuring out how to make it modular. So most of the time, if it's just one person driving around, it's a single person vehicle, like those really small Tango cars or whatever you saw in Silicon Valley or other shows. And then in other cases, you can actually snap them together and have a 2-person vehicle or a 4-person vehicle or an SUV or a trailer or whatever. There's lots of different ways to build automobiles. There's lots of different ways to get people from point A to point B. Because if you think about it, that's what an automobile is all about, right? The basic utilitarian function of an automobile is to get a person from point A to point B, and then get stuff from point A to point B, and maybe the people and stuff from point A to point B. But I digress. The reason why all those SUVs look the same is because we want them to look the same. We won't buy anything that's too out of the ordinary. I'll give you an example. So if you guys have seen the Ioniq 5, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, it's a really interesting looking SUV. Very radical design. Very sort of squared, and it has a lot of really interesting sort of digital blips and blops and squares and cubes, and it really appealed to me. The design really, really appealed to me, and I love the design of this thing, but apparently it's not doing very well in sales because it looks too different. It's slightly over the line of difference between what people will pay for and what the designers have put together. So personally, I love the design. I love these designs that are slightly different. Like, for example, the Cube, the Nissan Cube. Have you seen a Nissan Cube on the streets? No, hardly any, because hardly anybody buys it. We want to be distinctive. We want to be different, but we don't want to be too different. We don't want to be too distinctive. So yes, we can design SUVs that look completely different from the SUVs out there on the road. But would we want to buy and ride in one of those SUVs? We all want the same things as everybody else. And this is why the market looks the same. This is why when you look at almost every automobile that's out there, and not just automobiles, many other things, all look the same as other things. It's all in the same context. Nobody wants anything out of the box. Design is not dead. Design is just restricted by individuals who are saying, I just want the same thing that my neighbors have. I don't want anything different. I don't want anything strange. I don't want anything that takes people and makes them look at me and say, this person is not part of my tribe. This person is not part of my group. So the reality is that we're the ones at fault. It's not the designers. The designers want to be unfettered. They want to do their own thing. But we, as the purchasers, as the consumers, we are the ones who have to stand up and say, you know what? I don't want anything that looks like anything else. I want something that looks totally different, which is the reason why I put in a reservation for the Cybertruck. Because the Cybertruck looks completely different from anything else on the road. And if you think about it, even the Ioniq 5 looks kind of a little bit like a Cybertruck. So what I say to you folks is, if you want these cars to look different, if you want things to go a little out of the box, if you want things to be a little edgier and use the technology better, then demand it. Ask for those new designs, and then when new designs come out, buy them. Because the more we push the Overton window outside of that same set of standard designs that we have, the more designers have the ability to create new things that we can look at and go, wow, that is cool, that is different, that is interesting. Design is not dead. It's just trapped in the embers of memetic theory. That's it for me for today. See you next time, and until then, don't forget to think future.